Hello and welcome to our Spotlight video series where we discuss cutting-edge employment law issues. I'm Tom Spiggle, founder of the Spiggle Law Firm. We help people who've been fired or afraid that they might be in Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia. I'm thrilled today to have with me Heidi Powell, who has been with the firm many years, has decades of experience as a paralegal, which we're going to be talking about, and was recently, she's so good, she was promoted to professional legal administrator. So congratulations to you, Heidi, on that. But let's talk about your soon-to-be old gig, senior paralegal. What does that mean for folks who don't work in law firms every day?
Well, whenever someone asks me what I do and I say I'm a paralegal, and they always say, well, what is a paralegal? I always say, for ease, for the layperson, it's directly under an attorney. So you have an attorney, you have a paralegal, you have a legal assistant. And so the paralegal pretty much, to me, does everything an attorney does except give legal advice. So we don't do it completely. Obviously, an attorney has to oversee it, but we do draft pleadings, draft discovery, draft demand letters, and other kinds of correspondence. Review discovery. We can answer discovery. We also file pleadings in court. So we pretty much go across the whole spectrum. But I would say the difference between being a paralegal and maybe a legal assistant is a paralegal does a lot of document drafting. So I think that's probably the big distinction. An attorney obviously has to be the final viewer of the document and make the approval for it to go out, but a paralegal can certainly draft any legal document from scratch.
Yeah, and a paralegal, often will know more, particularly from the junior attorneys if they've been doing it for a long time, specifically about the mechanics of things, like how do you file something, where do you file something, what are the deadlines, like, how does the sausage really get made? Often, the paralegals will be the expert at that and relied on heavily by attorneys. And it's an excellent point that they, while the attorney has to be the one to sign off and, of course, stand up in court, a paralegal can do almost everything but that, right? In terms of except giving legal advice, but in terms of the writing and the research. And, I think one of the, when we think about like your role as a senior paralegal, like the more experience a paralegal gets, the more substantive work he or she can do.
Yes, and I've noticed for myself that as I get more, as I've gained more experience and done this longer and gotten more familiar with everything, I do things and other paralegals do things without having to be told. So you take the initiative and you do things that maybe when you first started or you were a legal assistant, you wouldn't do without asking, hey, should I go ahead and do this? As you get more and more experienced as a paralegal, you just run with it. You know what the next step is, and you don't have to check with the attorney on a lot of things. Obviously, on some things you have to check with the attorney, but there's a lot of things. Yesterday I did some things I didn't even ask the attorney. I just did it, and she was like, perfect, thank you, because I knew that would be the next step, and I knew that it's something that I can do. So I think being a good paralegal, you definitely have to take the initiative and do things. You have to have the confidence to do things without asking the attorney. They want to count on you and they don't want to be bothered with every little detail, because then you're not really helping them if you're constantly like, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I do this? So it's a lot of taking initiative and doing the thing that has to be done next.
Yeah, and I think, for the client, it's a huge benefit to the client because, you're billing out. I mean, sometimes we see people who they're confused. They're like, hey, why do I see on my bill, time for a paralegal and time for an attorney, often on an overlapping task. But to your point, a lot of times a really good paralegal can do the first 80% of it and bill out at sometimes less than half of what, an experienced attorney is going to bill out at. So, as a client, I want to see, legal assistant time, paralegal time, because I know that that's a sign of efficiency. Let the attorney focus on the things that he or she needs to focus on and that you needed a bar license for. And, the other work can be, a very important substantive work can be done by the paralegal.
Exactly. I completely agree. It's important, especially since we're a client-based company, it's all about the client. And you're right, they're very happy seeing paralegal and legal assistant work and not as much attorney work. Now, there are times, of course, they want to speak to the attorney. That
Oh,
is the
sure.
one thing I don't do a lot of. Usually, clients, when they want to talk about their case, they want to talk about it. If it's of substance about their case and strategy and next steps, they want to talk to the attorney. And that's where the attorney comes in, and clients aren't normally going to complain about seeing that on their invoice because that's substantive attorney work, talking about the next steps in their case and strategy and what we're going to do moving forward. But I think they're happy seeing the initial drafting of a demand letter done by the paralegal, and of course the attorney has to review it or make any edits. So I think we have a really good process for doing that, and we have great paralegals that can take it, can take the reins and do what needs to be done, like you said, for the first 70-80%, and then the attorney steps in. So that works really well.
Yeah. No, well, this has been very helpful. I appreciate you taking 5 minutes out of what I know is a busy day. So I will let you get back to the next thing on your desk. But before we let people go, if you want more of this kind of information, you can go to our site called thecareerrocket.io, where we share the latest and greatest in employment law news and other tips and tricks from professionals on how to keep your career on an upward trajectory. So thanks again, Heidi, and I look forward to having you back.
Thanks, Tom. Bye.
Bye-bye.